Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video sponsored by Simon's Stamp. Today I'm using this, it's a smaller set, it's not a 3x5, 4x4 maybe, set. It's called Donut Worry by Honeybee Stamps, and I thought it was super cute. Basically what sold me is there's a little sentiment in there that says eat the donut. Yeah, because there are some days where you're just like, I need to eat the donut. That's just where I'm at in life. So the way that I had envisioned it was kind of like with the sentiment stamped in the bottom leftish side. It ended up being more bottom center, and then kind of just donuts sporadically sprinkled around it. So that is what I did. So I'm stamping the sentiment first so I can get the placement for the donuts, and just gonna stamp that down. I did stamp it twice because it's the first time I ever used this stamp. And then the donut, the actual donut in the stamp set, isn't huge. It's a decent size, but it's not huge. And so it allows you to put a couple of different ones on there. I'm going to be honest, if I had to do this card all over again, I don't necessarily know that I would do it this way. I really think it's the background that kind of got away from me. We have talked a lot about how, you don't start over and work with it until you find something that you like. I cut little masks for all of these little donuts. That's what you see me putting on here. I believed I used Eclipse, but the Post-it note masking tape is also another one that I really, really like. So I decided to do a Distress Oxide background. I feel like, first and foremost, selecting Oxides was probably my first error, because they blend much easier than Distress inks, but because they have pigment, because they're, half pigment, half dye, and they have properties of both, sometimes it's a little difficult to mix the colors in an ink blending situation. So I put down Picked Raspberry, and then I moved to Wilted Violet. I knew that my donuts were pretty much going to be neutrals, and I wanted a way to add some color into the card, and I thought Monochromatic would be kind of the way to go. So I stuck to pretty much the same thing throughout the whole card. In order to get a little bit of depth in the shading, I did use 3 different colors of Distress Oxide. This is Dusty Concord, the middle one is Wilted Violet, and then the lightest is Picked Raspberry. And here's where I feel like things started to get away from me, because I was trying to blend them out, and in doing that, the area just kept getting bigger and bigger. And then when I went back in with the Picked Raspberry, because I pretty much had no pink left, this whole area was just like enormous. So I ended up with like a very small semicircle in the top left-hand corner that didn't have any Distress ink on it. In order to kind of like break up the color a little bit, I did sprinkle on some clean water, which this by far and away is one of my favorite things about Distress Oxides, because you can see that oxidation happen immediately as soon as you put the water on it, and it looks super cool. And then for some shine, I went in with Perfect Pearls in the color Perfect Pearls and put that on the background as well. Not that, I think ultimately at the end it kind of looks like donuts are falling from the sky. Which I don't necessarily know would be a bad thing, honestly. Did you ever see, what is that movie? Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs? It's a kid's movie. Did you ever see it? Like, he basically creates this concoction so that will create food in the sky. It, like, rains food. That's the whole premise of it. It sounds really silly, but the movie's kind of cute. Cute enough that they made a second one, anyway. But so I did not want it to look like donuts were raining from the sky, but that's ultimately kind of how it ended up looking. So once this is all dry, I'm going to remove the masks. When you're doing the spattering of the water or the spattering of the Perfect Pearls, just be careful that you don't have too much moisture, because this is not watercolor cardstock and these are paper masks. So if you get too much water on there, it can bleed through and ruin your like masked off image. I did not mask off the inside of the donuts because ain't nobody got time for that. That's the reality of the situation. I'm not cutting out each one of these individual donut middles. It's not necessary. So I just picked Copic markers that kind of matched the background that I had created And ultimately, when it's all said and done, I don't think you can even tell that that portion is copic versus distress oxide. And don't be afraid to like mix up your colors to get the color that you need to match the background. Like you can layer them, they're transparent, they'll work together. So don't be afraid to do that. There's also another little additional layer in this stamp set that is super cute. It's sprinkles. And so I did add some sprinkles to a couple of the donuts. I don't mind sprinkles on my donuts, like a chocolate covered donut with some sprinkles on it. I think that's delicious. My ultimate favorite, like favorite donut is the Boston cream. That's where it's at. I don't like the I don't know what the I don't know what I like the custard, people. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I like the custard filled donuts. Those are delicious. The backup to that is maple. It is delicious. I get it from my dad. Like my mother would never eat that. I definitely get that from my dad. And then also like at Easter time they have, this has nothing to do with donuts, it's just a complete side note. They have like the maple Cadbury eggs. Oh, those things are delicious. Love them. Anyway, back to this card. So I am adding a little bit of shading to each of the donuts. I want to give them a little bit of roundness. So I'm adding some darkness to the outside edge and the inside edge, leaving the lightest area on top. If you don't want to add any quote unquote toppings, icing, whatever, that's all you're going to need to do, and you'll have some dimension. I wanted there to be some color and some variation. So I drew some icing with my marker. Now, when you look at it, you're going to notice that the edges are uneven. Sometimes it goes all the way to the edge, sometimes it doesn't, because in real life, donuts are not iced perfectly. Like that's just not how that works. In order to get some dimension for the icing, I am adding some shading to the top left of the inner circle and then the bottom right of the outer circle. And that's just going to kind of play up those shadows and give it a little bit of dimension. If you really wanted them to be like super shiny, you could leave a white area and that would act as a very drastic highlight. I'm just going to go back in and put it in with my white gel pen when I do it. Alternatively, as you'll see at the end, there's a couple of other ways that you can make them shiny or interesting. So yeah, I go to Dunkin', like if you if you follow me on Instagram, I share a lot on Instagram stories. I go to Dunkin' all the time. Like I have a serious problem. I love me some Dunkin'. I love coffee, period, but I really love Dunkin' Donuts coffee. And so every once in a while, I will get a donut when I am there. And they had one, it was like there's like every once in a while they have specialty donuts. And I don't know, maybe like 2 months ago, they had one that was like a brownie bomb, I think is what it was called. Oh, so much chocolate. It was kind of like if you put a chocolate lava cake in brownie form. Like there was fudge in the middle of it, guys. Like that was amazing. It was so good. But otherwise, not really. I mean, I love sweets. I pick my restaurants based on what dessert I want. That's the truth. Like, especially after I had my son, when I was pregnant, I gained like 44 pounds, I think, when I was pregnant with Peanut. And so then, he was only 8 pounds. So there was some left to lose after that. And so I was, eating better and going to the gym and doing all of those things. And when I would have a cheat day, because the program that I did was called Zone, which is free. And if you are interested in doing that, I would definitely look it up. It totally worked for me. So anyway, you have cheat days because basically the science behind it is if you have a cheat day where it's not a full day, it's basically like 1 hour of a day and you can just eat whatever you want in that hour, then there's legitimately no effect on your diet. And so our cheat days, at the time my husband and I did it together, and our cheat days was Sunday. And then every time, like, we would alternate who, picked the restaurant, because you only get one a week and it's only fair. And every single time I picked the restaurant, I picked it based on what dessert I wanted. Because I was like, if I only have an hour, like, I'm not interested in your salad, Olive Garden. Will you bring me that black tie mousse cake? Like, is that an option? Can I have that? So that is how, to this day, like, still how I pick my restaurants, based on what dessert I want. For a long time at work, we eat together a lot as a shift. And so it'll be like, did you pack? No. Okay, this is where I'm going. Who's on board to go here, there, whatever. And then we do try to eat together when that works out. And for a really long time, I would pack my lunch, but then they would be going somewhere, like, I don't know, Fridays. And I would be like, get me the Whiskey River cake. That's delicious. Or they would go to Applebee's and I would be like, I want the blondie. Do you see? Do you see how easily this comes to me? It's because I pick it based on the dessert. So I have to know where all the desserts are so I know what I'm feeling like. But anyway, so I would pack and then I would only order dessert. And there was one of the guys I worked with, and for a long time, he thought I literally did not eat real food. Like, that I was just surviving on, like, cakes and cookies and brownies. He's like, I don't understand how, like, you can live your life not ever eating real food. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I eat real food. And he was like, sweets and bakery is not real food, Kelly. And I was like, no, I know. Like, that's why I eat real food. And he's like, I've never seen you eat something that's real food. I was like, oh, okay. Like, no, it's not. Like, I have a problem because I love sweets. But it's not that dramatic. So here you can see where I didn't really love the way that the coloring came out, and I'm just going over top of it. That's what I'm talking about, like with that transparency. They will work together. You don't have to start all over. And I just found colors that I thought matched the background pretty well. Like I said, I was going for more of that monochromatic look. The natural complement to pink is green and to purple is yellow. And I think maybe I would have liked this a little bit better if I had either picked different shades of pink and purple so it wasn't quite so matchy-matchy, or done the complementary color. But there is just something about, like, a green frosted donut that does not sound appealing to me, so I didn't do it. I outlined all of the donuts, especially when I use Distress Oxides, because it has a chalk finish. That's something you definitely want to kind of go over or restamp, because it's going to get really lost. That's that pigment ink property. I added some details with a white gel pen. I also used a couple of the souffle pens that I have. These are called embossing pens, and basically they go down clear, and then when they dry, they're opaque. I like them a lot for adding little details. So I used like a teal, green, and a yellow and a purple. So that was just to, kind of bring in some contrasting colors and break it up a little bit. I am going to go back in and restamp this sentiment. I have to, because again, that chalk finish from that pigment ink, look at that happy. Like, it just looks so dull, and I need a bold black sentiment. You know how I am. So I just restamped that. And then I wanted to include that eat the donut. Like, be happy, eat the donut. I feel like that's good advice. If you don't have friends in your life who are giving you advice that says, some days be happy, eat the donut, like, you don't need that kind of negativity in your life. So I treated this black Simon Says stamped cardstock with my anti-static tool bag, and then stamped it in Versamark ink. I'm going to use Simon Says stamped white embossing powder to go ahead and heat set that. And then I'm going to trim it down into a little teeny tiny label. You guys are not surprised by this, I'm sure, because I pretty much put it on every card. I just love the way it looks. I can't help myself. It's like such the perfect way to just add a little, little bit of extra to your sentiment. So I popped that up on foam. I used a bunch of clear sequins. This is from the Neat and Tangled clear sequin mix. And it's all different sizes. It's perfect. I love this one. And then once I had the sequins down, I went ahead and filled them in with glossy accents. And now we're going to do those things that I told you about, where you can add the little details. because this is pretty much a one layer card outside of that sentiment that's partially popped up. So I went in with Stardust stickles for a couple of them and did little like dots on top of what was already there, so there would be some sparkle. The same thing with the glossy accents. I went in and put in little bits of dots. If you wanted all of the icing to be shiny, you could certainly coat it in this. If you have like Nouveau drops, the colored Nouveau drops, this would also work well to decorate the donuts. And then a couple of them I used just clear Wink of Stella so that they would have a little bit of glitter. All the donuts had a little bit of something. So that is the entire card. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.